Hey guys, welcome back to Sound Off with Bernadette. This is your host, analyst, researcher, reporter, and tarot reader, Bernadette. We are going to be exposing the alternative. If you take away the major religions of the world, okay, which they all call them Abrahamic, which not all of them are Abrahamic, okay? Let's just be completely real here, okay? They love to say that to put everything in a box. But if we took all of them out, right? Christianity, Judaism, Muslim, okay, the three major superpowers, including all of the other religions that people tend to be a part of, like Sikhism, Taoism, all of this stuff, okay? We're taking out the major US Constitution based covered religions and going to the more ancient pagan ones. So, since this is one nation under God, capital G, how would it be? How would life be under the other gods with the lowercase g? I'm going to tell you right now, women and children would be property. But let's get into the specific semantics. You're listening to the 2025 Marathon Show, Most Shared Show, and Rising Star podcast. Thank you so much for being with me. Let's get into it. Please give me a follow if you like my content. So let's start with the glossy market illusion. You see, online, ancient Assyria is a heavily romanticized part of history. Romanticized by this history aesthetic, quote unquote, crowd and modern pagan circles. It's marketed as the ultimate cradle of advanced civilization, a shiny, sophisticated empire that pioneered the world's first true central governments. Massive global trade networks and magnificent architectural marvels. Pop culture documentaries love to hype up their legendary libraries, intellectual advancements, and cuneiform writing, and their sheer organized aesthetic power. They love to frame them simply as skilled diplomats and business geniuses. To make their empire look like a sleek, ancient corporate success story. That's what they sell you. But what was the actual life like under ancient Assyria? And what would it be like if that was forced to be the religion everybody, not just America, but everybody had to be under? Since America is a superpower, it wouldn't be just America. It would be all over the world. This would be a one world religion. Okay? So we're going to go through all of these from A to Z. So let's look at the brutal forensic reality. Okay? There's what they show you in these documentaries and what was life really like. What was life really like? The historical reality underneath that glossy aesthetic is a terrifying, hyper-militaristic nightmare driven by a ruthless pantheon. The Assyrian war machine operated on absolute terror and brutal state propaganda, famously carving giant stone reliefs depicting their enemies being actively flayed alive, decapitated, and publicly impaled on massive stakes to appease their gods. So, as a woman, if you had an OnlyFans as a woman, if you aborted your child as a woman, if you did anything that was against them and their regime, you would be publicly tortured for everybody to see. Feminism wouldn't even be a thing. What's my intent with this series? To see how good you fucking got it. Y'all love to mock Christianity. But after this series, you'll see how good you fucking got it. So when you actually crack open the actual Middle Assyrian law codes, the reality for daily life is chilling. For women, absolute erasure of autonomy. What did I tell you? Women were legally treated as property, heavily dependent on male relatives. The law required all respectable women and daughters to be strictly veiled in public. If a non-approved woman, like a maidservant, wore a veil, the law decreed she would be beaten 50 times with rods and have boiling bitumen or tar poured directly onto her head. For bodily autonomy, if a woman had a miscarriage or aborted her own pregnancy, the state considered it a crime against the empire's labor and military force. The mandatory punishment was horrific. The woman was publicly impaled on a stake and denied a burial. Conversely, if a man caused a woman to miscarry, he usually just had to pay a commercial fine in lead or shekels. But you got it so bad under Christianity, right? Okay. For children had no rights and were entirely at the mercy of the patriarch. The law explicitly states, the father shall do with his daughter what he pleases. Daughters were routinely treated as financial collateral, married off for political alliances, or bartered away to clear family debts. How would this impact modern America and the global superpower domino effect it would have on the entire world? If modern America shifted into a nation operating under the Assyrian theological and legal framework, society would instantly transform into a totalitarian military dictatorship where religion and the state are fused into an engine of absolute violence. Oh, but Christianity is so terrible, right? All of these ancient gods that you be asking for their energy in your rituals and your spells, you don't know what the fuck you're bringing in. You're so fuck the patriarchy, but you're bringing in the patriarchy, you dummy. You dummy. Dummy. So what is the domestic reality check? The US Constitution would be completely shredded. Freedom of speech would be replaced by brutal public physical mutilation. Basic domestic disputes or low talk, quote unquote, by women would be met with state-sanctioned lashings or the literal cutting off of fingers and lips. Bye-bye, feminism. Be careful what you're trying to bring in with these spells and these rituals. You don't even do your fucking research. I gotta do it for you, huh? The state would seize control over women's bodies, regulating dress codes under penalty of torture, and stripping away every single piece of legislation protecting children from exploitation or abuse. So, how does this translate into it being a global superpower threat? Let's get into that. Because America is a global superpower, this hyper brutal paradigm would violently ripple across the globe. Under an Assyrian model, international diplomacy through agreements would be replaced by pure, unchecked conquest. The US military would become an engine of total annexation, invading neighboring countries not for peacekeeping, but to intentionally pillage resources, take millions of inhabitants as war booty, and force foreign leaders into public subhuman humiliation. The global standard for human rights would be instantly collapsed, replaced by a rule of fear where the strongest nation literally flays dissenters to assert dominance. Do you know what flaying is? Peeling off of the skin. But yet Christianity bad, right? Right? So you don't want to pay attention to the rules and tenets of the Bible, but you're more than willing to channel and bring in through your rituals ancient gods. You have no idea what they were into. I'm going to tell you what they were into. But yet Christianity bad, right? So the next one we're going to do is the Aztecs. We're moving all down the line, honey. So you may hate Christians, you may hate Christianity, but the only reason you can have a fucking opinion and be able to display that shit online is through free will. Of course, there are spiritual consequences, but we're not going to operate like ancient Assyria, right? And cut off your lips and your fingertips. Especially you uber, hyper, militaristic, man-hating feminist women. Oh, you would be the first ones to be publicly flayed. You like your skin? You like it? Be thankful you still have it. Be thankful you still have your lips to bump on the internet. Be thankful you still have your fingertips that you put your nails on. Because that wouldn't be a thing either. They would rip the things right off. Natural nail bed and all. But Christianity bad, right? Okay. I'll leave you with that. Give me a follow. Love you guys. I'll talk to you in the next one.